Well, good morning from snowy and icy Kansas. We're having a winter storm, but it's kind of fun. And I'm really happy to be here today with another uh, healing path interview conversation with my good friend Nigel Lowson. And I met Nigel online. He lives in the UK, and we discovered a number of what do I want to say, parallel or synchronous ideas that we share in common, but our pathway, while not really different, isn't exactly the same. And so he's perfect for the healing path, which is, in my idea, that there are many, many paths to healing, and each person resonates differently with the path that calls them to start. And I think when we chat, Nigel will talk a little bit about what gets a person started uh, with meditation. And the healing path is just conversations. The goal is to give information about different modalities of healing and to inspire you to step onto your own healing path or to step further down your healing path, explore a new modality, start a different modality, add a different tool to your toolbox, and above all, have fun, because usually the thing that starts us on healing might not be too fun, but the discovery and what happens after or in the process of healing, that can bring great joy and lots of fun. Mainly, and the people I bring on to talk with, a lot of this is self-healing. It starts with self-healing. You can use all kinds of modalities or any kind of medicine or, like, say, massage on top of this, but the inside impetus is a desire to change, and to change in a way that is healing for you and the people you know. So I'll bring Nigel onto the screen, and he can tell you a little bit more about himself, and then we'll just chat about meditation. Hey, Nigel.
Hello, Laura. Hello, everybody. Well, thanks very much, Laura, for inviting me here. It's a miserable day here down in Devon, in UK. It's early evening. I've just had the most glorious cup of tea and a nice Christmas cake. And whenever I have my tea and cake at about 4, I always remember that actually what I'm doing is refueling. I'm rebalancing myself. I'm building up my reserves of food. And of course, I'm also, I know this sounds a bit out there, but there you are. I'm filling it with love when I eat and when I drink, because I'm connecting to the people who've made the cake, my wife in this case. I'm connecting to the people who grew the food. And so I'm seeing myself as part of that great connectivity that we might call humanity, if we wanted to. So I was a teacher in secondary schools, which in England is from 11-year-old until 18-year-old children. And my role was to look after about 1,000 children and the staff and parents. So yeah, it was great fun. Teenagers are fantastic, aren't they? To make sure that their mental, their emotional well-being, and perhaps to some extent their spiritual development was sort of roughly within the bounds of where we might like it to be. And obviously teenagers are very challenging, and they're the most fantastic teachers. And since I retired early a few years ago, I've been focusing on meditation and teaching spirituality, teaching how to enjoy life more, how to see the value of everything. And this came about, and do stop me if I'm rabbiting on, Laura. This came about because I woke up one morning quite a few years ago, and I couldn't move without really experiencing excruciating pain in all parts of the body. Now, I know in retrospect, this was all a build-up of unresolved stress. And bear in mind, I've been teaching stress techniques, how to beat stress, for 20 years before that. And I knew it all in my head. And I was practicing meditation. I was teaching mindfulness, we call it today, in the 80s. So yeah, I built up a repertoire of skills. But it's only, for my case, the experience of going through the physical pain which stopped me dead in my tracks. Supposed to be in a wheelchair in a few weeks and all the rest of it. And it made me just really reorientate myself and to lie in bed without any covers because it was too hard to bear a sheet on you, and just meditate, just heal myself. This is called the healing path. I was in a lake. I created a lake, a healing lake with waterfall and lights and love and all that for 8, 10, 12 hours a day in my head. And I could invent, after a while, there was nothing else to do. I could feel the water going through my cells, clearing out the dark, horrible, gooey stuff. And so whether that had anything to do at all with getting rid of my physical ailment, as it were, or not, I don't know. The consultant was shocked. I was delighted. And I decided I really needed to get in touch more with myself and that other side of myself, which I knew intellectually. And I think through meditation, you can come at it through your head, which I did, through the intellect. You can come at it through the body. A lot of people are very active, very physical, and they like dancing, like your good self, and they can get themselves in a state of meditation through trance-like dances and whatever. A lot of people get through it through the mind body, through the deep emotions, and they put themselves in really emotional situations, so they're really quite all over the place, and that's a form. But of course I can meditate when I'm sweeping the yard, particularly when my wife asks me to, because I'm getting bonus points for doing what I'm told to do. But whatever you do, just don't do it with the intention of finishing it. I'm not doing it to finish it. I'm not doing it to clean the yard. I'm just doing it. I'm not doing it because I've been told or asked to. I'm just doing it. And I'm immersing myself in the sweeping of the yard with all my concentration, all my focus on that. And when I walk, I try and walk with all my focus on walking. And it's when I talk to people, I'm trying to talk with them. And I try to listen to them, and not to the voices in my head or the distractions around me, but in here. So for me, meditation can be very active. You can do it whenever. And certainly when I teach meditation to an individual, and I've taught individuals, 2 or 3 people I've had for quite a few months every day, just for half an hour a day. Costs a fortune, of course, but they've got money. It's nice. And we sit and we Zoom for half an hour, and we go through whatever's going on, and we just sit in peace, and we allow these thoughts to appear, and then we talk about them afterwards. And these people need that. They need somebody to help guide them. Other people need the group dynamic, and other people do it by themselves. It doesn't matter.
It came up into my mind when you were talking about this. Sometimes people think they're not supposed to think anything when they meditate. And sometimes things come up that they didn't expect, and they don't know what to do with the idea. But the idea that for me, and you can tell me if this works in the frame that you do, is I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And I don't have an agenda for myself to take any action on the thought or the feeling. I mean, I can record it if it seems like an answer to a problem that's been churning around underneath. I might record that and still think about it. But maybe I have a flood of emotion I didn't even know was there. And I can very easily, quickly go, what was that? Why did that happen? And I'm like, oh, wait, that's not here.
Yeah.
And then I come back here and I just let that sit over on the side, kind of.
Yeah. Well, I like that. That's a very good description. The way to teach meditation for me, anyway, is to teach people to control their attention, to place their awareness, their attention, their focus on where they wished it to be placed. And this takes time, because the mind is a monkey mind. It flits around, it's very busy. We have 70,000 thoughts a day, and so on and so on. And so by starting with your breath, usually, because we breathe 27,000 or so times a day, so it's pretty good, we can then play around with the breath. We can have long breaths, short breaths, we can have breaths with a pause in between, no, and so on. All of which play a role in our physiology and help us heal ourselves physically and calm ourselves mentally and emotionally. And so breathing is the first stepping point, really, I think. And it's not following the breath. It's just taking the breath. That's all it is. Then we focus on the body, and we feel the effects of the breath in the body. That's the nostrils, the tongue, the abdomen, the chest, whatever. And then we can sit around or lie down and do perhaps a body scan for 45 minutes, 25, whatever minutes. And it's in those weeks and weeks of training, you're beginning to realize that the thoughts will just suddenly appear, as you say. And it's so easy to follow them like leaves on a stream. And it's so easy to get enmeshed and entangled with them and wrapped up. And so we have to teach people how to deal with those thoughts. And the best way probably is not to feel bad about yourself, because so many people say, oh, I've failed, I haven't done it right, and all the rest of it. But actually, it's to label the thought. It's to use the brain's logical side just to label it. So use your brain as an ally in this and just label it. Oh, it's a thought. It's a domestic thought. And I see this sort of gentle escorting of my attention back to where I want it to go. So the idea that meditation is going into a sort of a thought void really isn't something I've met very often, I must confess. I may have met it for nanoseconds. It's more because that implies that you've got somewhere. Again, you see, you've finished sweeping the yard, you've got to the place of meditation. And it isn't. It's the process. And so then after you can control your sort of monkey mind a little bit, quite successfully at times perhaps, then you can start bringing in some quite heavy or heavier topics. So you can then bring to mind memories, perhaps belief systems about abundance, money, the male-female relationship. What do I think about God? What do I think about spirituality? What do I think about death? What do I think about love, hate, and all the rest of it? And you can then spend time, if you wish, just to open yourself up to see what comes up. Then you can observe it with curiosity, that wonderful trait of humanity, that endless curiosity, but without getting sucked into it and without judging yourself that it's good or bad, because it's not, it's just what it is. And so then you can tease it around, and then perhaps it will resettle in you in a more comfortable manner, perhaps, or not. Because the discomfort which comes out when you talk to somebody about, who was I talking to the other day about job satisfaction? They expected to have a low level of job satisfaction. And so they got it, surprisingly. They thought their job was boring, they never enjoyed it, and it was therefore boring and didn't enjoy it. And we just worked on just reframing it somewhat. What do you want? Where's your expectation come from? And just to chat gently with love for oneself, because you're right, healing for yourself before you can heal others is the key. And it is about trying to sort of say to the person in that case, okay, where do you think these ideas come from? Do you still want these ideas, these beliefs? If you do, fine, keep going. If you don't, just gently challenge them whenever they appear. And just not squash them, acknowledge them, they're part of you. It might be an absolute dislike of somebody. And when you try to show people that actually, when you're sending love out to people, healing love perhaps to people, you may want to cut out the ones you don't like, the people who aren't like you, but you may actually find that quite easy. But that isn't necessarily the right way forward. Perhaps it may be the more difficult route is to actually bring those people to be first in line, if you like, for any love and any healing you wish to give them in your thoughts, so that you, before your loved ones. Now that's tough for some people, I appreciate that, and it is difficult. But unless we gently challenge ourselves without that sense of entanglement, then I don't think it's a deeper form of meditation. I think it's the right way. That's how I work anyway, sorry. So start with the breath, go through the body, and that's where I bring in mindfulness, and I get people to mindfully shower, mindfully wash, mindfully eat, talk less, talk at a lower volume, eat slower, all those sorts of things. Observe your breath for a minute, every half hour, every hour. So lots and lots of little techniques just to bring you all the time back into the moment, into the present, throughout the day, and it's just sort of lowering the background noise really around you. So then you're more in control. The biggest enemy in meditation really is your brain. Not your brain.
Well, the biggest enemy in life is our brain.
Because your brain's job is not to keep you happy or blissful or whatever. It's to keep you alive. And in my case, it's done a pretty good job, one or two glitches, for 60 odd years, and hopefully a few more decades. And it isn't. And therefore, once I start playing around and trying to change how I am, how I think, my instinctive responses to situations, and I start being non-judgmental to myself, to others, and so on, my brain isn't used to this. And so it's going to fight me in a very logical and very hard fashion. And so you've got to go gently into the night of your brain, I'm afraid, and just, which is where play comes in, where play, joyful play, and the celebration of being silly comes in sometimes.
You said earlier too, to let the part of your brain that wants to categorize and identify to just label. Oh, this is a domestic thought. This is a work thought. This is a memory thought. And then you are not rejecting the brain, right? You are directing it into a function that it's very good at. And, this is this, and this is that, and this is dangerous, and this is good. And, and the brain is just doing this all the time.
Yeah. Change for the brain is bad. It doesn't like change. Well, so count another one. Count the breath.
It thinks it knows how to keep you safe.
Yes. That's its job. And it's done a pretty good job. So counting is very good for, if your brain isn't settling when you're physically settling, because in meditation you want to physically relax, but be alert mentally, to be focused. If your mind relaxes and you daydream all the time, that's not meditation really. So bring in your attention and to your brain and relax in the body. That's, to me, is meditation. It's coming home, if you like, to me. It's just being. It's being still. It's stopping the busyness of life, and it's just stopping it for a few minutes. And I know when I haven't meditated for a few days that I miss it. It's like I've never been into exercise big time. Some people say they miss physical exercise, or I'm sure you're one of them. I don't. I never have done, I'm afraid. But I do miss my meditation, which is just simply sitting down.
Well, I have a question, Nigel. You miss, it sounds like you miss the calming time, but do you notice a difference in the flow of your day when you don't meditate? A slight agitation with things that don't go the way you expect them, because we know things don't always go the way we expect them.
Yeah, sometimes.
A little bit more, what would I say? I think a reactability, not necessarily volatility, but reactability to, to people, to things, to noises. Does that happen if you don't meditate for a few days, or?
Yeah, it allows the automatic pilots, that sort of decades-long initial, instant reaction to things, to take more and more control of my, aeroplane or whatever, and so I've got to reassert my control. But there you see, the fact that I miss it means that I'm not dwelling in today. I'm thinking about yesterday, and I'm feeling regretful or disappointed or perhaps a little bit angry in myself that I haven't done what I said I would do. Well, you're not there yet, Nigel, are you? I keep saying to myself, we are, after all, at least most of us are human for most of the time. And we've got to have the ability to laugh at ourselves and just to know that we're not perfect. The cult of perfectionism is, don't get me on that, for goodness sake, because I will go on and on. But we're not perfect. We're not trying to be perfect when we meditate. We're just trying to be ourselves, to allow the real true, with a capital T, self, to be seen, to be felt, to be experienced, so that the false self, the self we've created around us, what we call our personality, I suppose, to an extent, is able to shed its defensive duties, if you like. So the real Nigel, the real Laura, can come to the fore. And I think that's what joy does, really, whether it be physical exercise, dancing, whether it be touching people with Reiki healing or whatever. We're just trying to bring people and ourselves into alignment with ourselves, and then we can connect with other people more deeply and connect to nature more deeply. And what greater definition is there of I suppose, the spirituality? Because fundamentally, at the end, we will face death, and there will have to be some whatever happens then. We can talk about that another time we like. But spirituality is one of the questions which I get asked all the time. Will you teach me to be spiritual, Nigel? I love it, because everybody already is spiritual. It's just allowing them to explore it in a non-threatening manner to them.
I kind of like that, this idea that when we get still and we stop doing, that more of ourself can just kind of float to the surface.
And sometimes that's not nice stuff coming up, I tell you. Sometimes it can be quite hard to realize that you, inverted commas, aren't perfect, that you do have feelings of hatred, you do have feelings of enormous regret, and nasty thoughts. And these are difficult things for some people to face. So you don't want to go into that sort of stage first.
Well, here's the thing. It's like there isn't a perfect meditation way. There isn't. It's the expectation. If I'm going to sit for 5 minutes every morning, and then my day will be filled with love and light. Maybe, and maybe not.
But what will happen if you meditate for a few weeks or a few months or a few years? You will be more in control of your reaction, your response to what comes into your life. And then it's down to you to decide, not a puppeteer, not your history or automatic pilot, whatever. It's down to you. And you can decide whether to be angry. And if you want to be angry, be angry. So I've never been one to think that, the great light of, everybody who meditates massively is terribly relaxed and decent and loving all the time. I don't know people like that. I don't think that's human, you see. We are flawed. And it's a case of embracing our flaws and realizing that everybody has flaws. And we're all fundamentally part of the whole puzzle, I suppose, really. So yes, if even when I reach that state of nirvana or whatever, I will let you know, Laura.
I can't wait.
Don't wait, though.
That's the other thing. I think that it's fleeting. It's like I talk about in my work, the flow state. And people might have a ritual or a special food that they eat, and that puts them into the flow state. Okay, this is great. But then they think being out of the flow state is bad and being in the flow state is good. And so right away, the brain has started categorizing and sending you off. And then there's the fear. I'm never going to get back to this state again. And then the ritual becomes rigid because I must have this, like before I perform. And then we might hurt other people's feelings because we are being so rigidly attached to the ritual. And then this is the complications of what I would tell you, the brain running amok.
It is, but that's just what the brain does. And that's when we meet things like that. And the other one is, I see a lot, is that people say, oh, Nigel, you'd be really pleased. I did half an hour's meditation, or I did hours yesterday. Aren't I? I'm really getting on, aren't I? I just laugh. I say, it's you're bringing the ego in. You're bringing the I in again, which is fine. But once you realize you're doing that, that's a great starting point. So realize that you are drifting one way or the other, in whatever manner at all. And notice the brain doing it. That's stage one. Notice it without becoming involved or judging yourself, stage two. And then stage three is deciding not to do it. or deciding to do it. And if you're going to do it, then do it. If you want to get carried away into whatever. But you're right about the flow, though. Once you're in the flow and you talk to artists and musicians, and they just are, this is such a beautiful. I've never experienced that in an artistic sense, but those people who have, it is rapturous for them. It is joy in that true sense of the word. So I don't envy them. I used to envy them, but I've tackled the envy. There's still a little bit left, I'm sure. But it is just about making us helping us to become the very best Nigel I could be, the very best Laura that Laura could be, and that is what it is. So we are going to observe our lives. We're going to be the actors in our lives. We're going to be the directors of our lives. So we're the audience, the performers, and the writer of our lives, and that's what I want to try to move myself a little bit closer to. But going back to the very beginning, when I said, well, meditation isn't about getting anywhere, you can see that I've got some work to do yet.
Okay, but this is the key. This is one of the very important things. It's the desire to be a better person, the desire not to yell at your kids when they're overexcited, the desire to want to be some way other than we are. That might propel somebody into taking a meditation class, or it could be a crisis and a death, a loss of a job, a something that all the other tools that the brain has acquired to deal with adversity are not working.
No.
And so then we're like, okay, everybody's talking about meditation. I'm going to give it a shot.
People come to meditation, you're absolutely right, at critical times in their lives of stress. It might be in my case where I had to really rethink my meditation practice. It was through physical illness. It could be emotional illness. It's when we're ill at ease, we're dis-eased in some way. And it could be a divorce, it could be a death, it could be the shock of losing your job, it could be a mental breakdown or whatever, really. It could be your own impending mortality, whatever. So people come to...
Actually, right, having a baby changes your whole life.
Absolutely. Yes, I figured, I've realized that.
And I think that disharmony, right? We imagine that baby is a joyful event.
And we are disappointed when we're not happy and joyful all the time. Therefore, we're failing, plus we're physically tired. And, we beat ourselves up, that, our sense of failure and judgment comes in.
And then people can say, well, I just don't have time to meditate, But how simply, do you have something like simply and quickly that somebody could do that isn't a whole meditation practice, but interrupts? Because that's what I think also is the value of meditation, is it interrupts the thought that is just driving us into discomfort or dis-ease.
Right. So you want two lots. You've got your deeper meditations, which you want to be sitting down or lying down 5, 10, 15, 20 minutes, whatever. And then there's the quick things, tips, techniques you can do, which take a minute. And you can do them while you're changing your baby's nappy, perhaps.
And here's the other thing you were talking about, just when I'm sweeping the yard, I'm sweeping the yard.
Yeah.
If we can be present with that little baby while changing the diaper, because they're so fluid and pretty much undefended at that place, they can really feel the presence.
Yes.
And they can also feel I didn't have time for this. We were almost out the door. How could and so even if you have that feeling, right, that like, now I'm going to be late and blah, instantly, there's just a quick thing. So what do you do in those quick moments that you need a quick calibration.
I've given you access to a couple of courses, I think, 21 days of breathing. So there's 1-minute breathing exercises, which you simply do. You just breathe in through the nostril, hold the breath for a moment, and just let it out gently with control. So you just focus as much as you can on your physical breathing. Breathing in. And you can do this while you're changing the baby's nappy. If your heart rate's going a bit and your stress levels are going up, balance your breathing. Check the balance. So you breathe in, whatever the count is for the breathing in, count the same number on the breathing out. I do 4-4. And if you want to have a square breathing, you can go 4, hold it for 4, let it out for 4, breathe, and then hold it again for 4. There's 3 really quick techniques you could do. And when you're changing a baby's nappy, say, and you're stressed out, just note it. Yes, hard as this might be, try to experience the texture of the material, of the skin of the baby. Perhaps if people still use talcum powder these days, smell that and smell the other odors which might be emanating from there. And just try to notice your stance, notice your shoulders, bring the little spotlight torch on different parts of your body. And as they do that, just imagine it melting away the stresses and strains from your body. It's usually here or the stomach or the back, to be fair with people, or heads. So just develop it and play around with it as well. So you don't get locked into this is the answer. There's a huge number of techniques. I think I've given you access to 40 days of mindfulness. These are all 40 different techniques, 90-second techniques, which you can do anywhere, anytime, standing in the queue, sitting in the traffic lights, being grateful for the traffic lights on red, because then you can just practice just a simple breathing exercise. There are many of them. And I like them, and I like to give people lots and lots of these, because one size doesn't fit all. There are many different types of ways of sitting and meditating, bringing things to the front and taking away your false self to expose yourself. And there's many different breathing and mindfulness techniques. They don't all work for everybody. So you've got to play around with it and see which one suits.
Right, like food. We don't all like the same food.
And the other thing is that sometimes I like that Christmas cake, but I wouldn't want it after 4 weeks of eating nothing but Christmas cake. So a technique, just because it's worked once, doesn't always work, you see.
See, that's really important too. And early, my friend Esther came on to the healing path. And what she also said is it's a practice. She teaches just breathing, but it's a breathing practice. Right. This means you might do the same technique for 3 or 4 days and discover how it changes over time. She said, it's like learning any physical skill. Meditation, I think of as a physical and mental skill. We aren't instantly good at it. We become better the more we practice.
I don't know. I don't know whether I become better or not, actually, Laura, to be honest. I think I just meditate. Full stop. I wanted to progress. I wanted to succeed. You see where I'm going with this. It's a circular argument, really. And I don't want to jump hurdles. I just want to be still. And so I'm still. And to enter into a land of non-desire, when you're desiring to be still.
Yeah,
even wanting a non-desire is a desire, you see.
Right.
It's like riding 2 bikes. You can't ride 2 bikes at the same time. So what do? And actually the answer is not to ride either of them, not to just choose one. But I mean, all I can say to anybody who wants to start a practice of meditation, or to reboot theirs, or to kickstart it, whatever, go for it. Absolutely go for it and see what happens. But whatever you do, stick at it. It's not going to happen overnight, whatever it is. So it is a practice. So Esther was absolutely right. It is a practice. It doesn't make you perfect. I don't necessarily think it makes you better even. I don't think
we talked about that a minute ago, that there can be a desire to change something in our lives, to not be so reactive in certain situations, that takes you
Yeah.
to study meditation.
Yeah.
And you may or may not become less reactive, but you will learn something
Yeah.
of value about yourself.
You will. That I can promise anyone. You will definitely learn something. You may not what you wish to learn sometimes, but there you go.
That's the secret. That's the secret of the healing path.
When you look at a mirror, all you're seeing is what's there. It doesn't hold on to the image. When you look at a lake with some geese flying over it and you look at the reflections, the lake isn't holding on to the reflections. And it's the same for me with meditation, you see. You're just being there. And you're not clinging on to anything. Whatever comes up in the meditation comes in the meditation. They're thoughts, they're not thoughts. They're thoughts which you pursue or you don't pursue them. And that's it. What I do know, though, is every single bit of advice I give people is backed by science, and more doctors are offering meditation as a way of self-healing. And more people are forming groups to send healing intention, call it what you will, to some people call it prayers, some people call it intention, some people call it vibes, man, to help other people with their physical, emotional, and mental ailments. And they don't know about it. So scientists are studying these. And for me, this is a great joy to see that, the hard-nosed rationalists are really beginning to notice that meditation can, and relaxation, and the sort of work you do, the sort of work everybody who talks on the healing path does, makes a difference inside us. And that's the important thing, to set the pendulum back a little bit away from generally just taking pills. Because medicine and meditation, of course, come from the same root of word. And it's, for me, my doctor is fantastic. I rarely see him, and when we do, we talk about meditation. He's just great. He's so interested and open, and it's fantastic. And he says, "You're going to have a pill this time, Nigel." I said, "Okay, fine. You sure?" He said, "Yes, fine." And I have a pill. But yeah, it's good, isn't it? Life, don't you think?
It's an adventure, and like every adventure, the parts that make the hero's journey are usually the things you have to, challenges that arise, that have to be managed, dealt with, moved through,
Absolutely.
passed over.
And that is something which, when you've gone through your night journey as a hero, you've met the challenges, and you've either succeeded in the challenges or you haven't. You've just met them. You've done your best. Then you eventually get to the stage, I think, where you're grateful for the challenge. You're grateful for the physical, the emotional pain that you went through. And you can go, a new you is growing out of, I suppose, the ashes, to continue the hero thing. And these myths are everywhere in every culture throughout the whole of history. And it's just simple teaching, really. What you get is what you get. You just can't stop things happening to you sometimes. COVID, sadly, the death of a loved one, or whatever. These things happen. And it's our response to those which we can control to some extent once we get past the initial shock and overwhelm. Then we can start to work on it. And eventually, it may take months, it may take years, we can see the value to ourselves of that unpleasantness. And we become possibly a deeper, possibly a better, possibly a nicer person, perhaps. I don't know about that last one, but and so the pain and the suffering which is in the world, and will always be in the world, I believe, has a purpose, and it's a purpose to teach us. Unpleasant people have a purpose to teach us, and to remind us that not to be judgmental about them and their silly words or their silly actions. That's just what they're doing. We don't have to judge them. We can, and we do, but we don't have to. And wouldn't the world be a better place if we didn't judge ourselves so harshly, if we didn't judge other people so harshly, if we didn't divide people into people like me, people not like me? And those sorts of divisions which are around, and quite, we've gone through the Brexit in England, that you probably may not know too much about separation from the EU, and that really divided the country right down the middle. And it was a very, very difficult time for people, I think, in all sorts of ways. And different age groups, different gender backgrounds, parts of the country, and lots of very unpleasant thoughts were thought and words and deeds. And now it's a case of healing that. So, okay, well, it reminds us that we're human. We've got our foibles and our weaknesses. And now we've got to just accept that and just continue to do what we do, which is to be human. And we can only be human by being. And by being, we become human in all its glory. And to me, being truly human means that you can shine more brightly. So people who you try and teach meditation or offer meditation to, who keep at it, they become the greatest advocates of meditation, not doctors, newspaper reports or scientific journals, etc. It's people and their actions, the calm ones, the ones who don't seem to get flustered, the ones who seem just to take whatever comes in stride, but have a real passion for life and a joy for life. They're the ones who are the beacons for meditation, really.
And it doesn't mean that they don't have upsets and that they don't go to their meditation cushion and day after day think about, this person or that event or this, but it's that they trust the process of being still, of allowing, of not judging. And
it will work. It will work. However, it will work out. I mean, I've sat down and I've been so angry at times over the years, so deeply hurt, so deeply, really emotions and feelings which perhaps one wouldn't want to own up to. But that's just what you've got to feel. And meditation allows you to feel these things. With some of my classes, I teach them how to breathe in anger, breathe in disappointment, breathe in that sort of naughty, unpleasant feelings, if you like, and burn them in their stomach, in the furnace of their belly, if you like, and breathe out love and light and healing or whatever it is. And you can do it the other way around, of course. You can breathe, anyway. But so to me, it's about growing up. Meditation, growing up into the best person I can be. Adaptability, acceptance,
right? And it's moment by moment.
Yeah, it's really difficult, isn't it? That and I was trained to do this many years ago in the 80s by having an internal dialogue. Walk into the door, putting my right foot in front of my left foot, moving my right hand towards the door handle, and literally, absolutely talking like a radio commentator on a football game. I say everything I did, as well as the thoughts. Oh, now I'm thinking about my shopping list. Now I'm thinking this is so tiring and exhausting and boring, and I had to do that for a week. I just try it for an hour. It's exhausting, but it really focused that. Just how much is going on and how much information is being thrown at us and absorbed by our skin, by our ears, eyes, and into the brain to be processed. And it's too much. The brain can't process it. It processes very small percentage, 1 or 2% of what it gets. And so if my belief is a negative one about life and people are out to get me and life's horrible, then I will select from all these inputs those things to reinforce my mindset about life. If I've got a more positive or more upbeat one, then my mind will automatically select those, and fill in the pieces in the missing jigsaw sort of thing. So it is a difficult task, but occasionally I still go back to that just for about 10 minutes now. It's so tiring to talk myself through this internal narrative of what I'm doing. Just to remind me, to bring me right back into the moment. So my brain is switched off and I'm not thinking about other people or what I should be doing.
Or what you're going to have for dinner or what you have to take out of the freezer to have it ready for dinner or Yeah.
Well, there's an interesting one. Even just picking your hand up, you see, if you notice to pick up the talcum powder for the baby's bottle, so, you notice as you move your hand up, what's happening to. Can you feel what's happening inside your fingers and the air either side of it? Of course, it's and you become much more sensitive to sounds, to sights, to odors, to aromas. Much more sensitive to your own emotional feelings as well when you meditate regularly. And so life is more vibrant, I think. Life is, well, certainly, I think it's more vibrant than it used to be, in my experience. And other people say so as well. It is more full. You don't want to miss much. And the discontent of sitting watching a television every evening for 2-3 hours or something and doing the same pattern of things, the discontent builds up. And so you're able to say, okay, well, I can vary this a bit, And we can also finally on meditation, I think we can remove the shackles of contentment and feeling that what we want is contentment. I'm happy with pleasure. I love pleasure. I'm happy with contentment, but I want joy. So I know I'm not supposed to want anything in this land of non-desire, but joy is what I'm after, really, or what I was originally after. And just that whole sense of being totally immersed in what I'm doing all the time. And whatever comes along, I can make it work for me. That's the aim. But joy, whether I ever get to the next stage, in some people's view of what it all is all about, is bliss. Whether I get there, I suspect it might be another few hundred years.
Well, and again, it's the journey, the path, the unfolding. You actually did talk about it kind of like unfolding.
Yeah.
And so I will I know you teach some classes and you have a couple of books about meditation and things. I will put those in the comments of the.
I'd really love to do a group of American adults. I've done loads of English and Welsh, obviously, British and Europeans, but I've never done a group of pure Americans. So it would be fantastic if we could get half a dozen or so, because I don't like large groups. I don't want more than 8 in a group. Just to meet for an hour a week for 6-8 weeks and just to see where we go. And because I think I could learn a huge amount because it's a different cultural approach to stillness, silence, and what's important and so on. It would be purely selfish, most interesting. I would really enjoy it.
Well, I'll put the information out and how people can reach you. And I want to thank you for some just delightful ideas. And I was doing the breathing, then I forgot to do it. And I can do it while you're talking, right? I can be just right here with you, listening and gently mindful of my breathing. And then I can completely forget it because I get caught up in the next thing you're saying and remembering something in my life.
But the separation between the thoughts and the breath and the body. So you can, while you're focused on your breathing, you're listening with real interest to the person you're talking to. But you're also feeling the buttocks on the chair and you're feeling the temperature of the wood. So it enables you to really be completely alive in all those areas rather than just in the head or just in the body. You know this with dancing, you feel the vibration of the music, you feel the ground underneath you, and you've got all that wonderful emotional sense going on as well. I mean, it's just awesome seeing people dance with beauty. It's great.
So
I do love, by the way, the healing path, because you're absolutely right. It is a path. It's a never-ending path, I think, and I think it's a great title, Laura. It's great.
Oh, thank you so much, and thanks for coming and sharing. Well, and I will we'll say goodbye for today, and maybe we'll show up again and have more talks.
Whatever.
It's fun.
Always fun, Laura. Always a great pleasure and an honour to talk to you, and very best of luck with everything.
Thank you.
Oh, and a very, very good 2021.
Yes, may we please have a joyful and peaceful 2021.
We will, I'm sure. Thank you, Laura.
Bye-bye.